Hello, Josie Wales here and welcome to this combat mission Fortress Italy after action report. This was a head-to-head battle against Buckykatt from the Few Good Men. The scenario is the fight for Borgo Cascino. I am playing as the US Army and my opponent is playing as the Germans. The mission is to secure 3 objectives. The Borgo Cascino and secure from enemy objectives are both worth 50 points. And the road to Enna objective at the east end of the map is worth 100 points. I will also be awarded an additional 150 points for keeping my casualties below 33%. Enemy troops are from the 15th Panzergrenadier Regiment and are believed to be between platoon and company sized in strength. I have no idea on their exact disposition, however I believe they are likely to occupy the locations highlighted. In order to complete the objectives, I have a company of US infantry designated Charlie Company, consisting of 3 regular rifle platoons and a weapons platoon made up of 2 medium machine gun teams and 3 60mm mortar teams. Also attached is a forward observer who has access to 4 tubes of the 81mm battalion mortars. 3 jeeps have also been made available. The terrain is mostly flat and open. There are 2 hills in the centre of the map, both of which are topped with buildings surrounded by vineyards, orchards and woodland. From the top of the hills, my opponent has got excellent observation to any approach I might make from the west. My observation is limited up to the hills in the centre of the map. The woods, orchards and vineyards dotted around the hills offer the Germans good concealment. My opponent has access to good cover in the form of low walls around the hills and buildings on top of them. By contrast, I have no access to any decent concealment. However, low walls separating the fields from the roads and a single barn do provide some limited cover. These same walls will be obstacles to jeep movement. I have identified 2 pieces of key terrain on this map. KT1 sits on the Borgo Cascino objective. It is a hill with several building complexes at the top. The buildings offer excellent cover and allow observation out to the west side of the map, although there is some defilade to the north and south of the objective. KT2 lies directly to the south. It is also a hill with several buildings at the top. It allows good observation to the west and southwest, although there is some dead ground to the northwest. Capturing these 2 pieces of key terrain is essential so that observation can be gained into the eastern end of the map. The initial movement plan is to send some scouts out eastwards. This will hopefully draw fire from enemy positions on and around the objectives and key terrain, allowing for return fire from my base of fire elements. Once sufficient suppression has been achieved, 1st and 2nd platoon will manoeuvre out to the left and move towards the KT1 key terrain objective. 3rd platoon are tasked with moving on the right flank towards the KT2 key terrain objective. I have placed my 1 target reference point on the secure from enemy objective in the northeast of the map. My thinking behind this is that I am anticipating most of the heavy fighting to be around KT1 and KT2, and that if I do get this far into the enemy rear, then my troops will need all the help they can get to overcome the last resistance. The time is 1200 hours. I have 1 hour and 10 minutes to complete the mission. It's a clear, hot day, the ground is very dry and the wind is gentle from the west. The battle is started with harassing fire from 2 of the 81mm tubes onto KT1. The 1st platoon send out their scouts. German infantry are spotted scattering, presenting tempting targets for the scouts. A German marksman starts to cause problems. The FO team move up to adjust the harassing fire. But the German marksman nails the radio operator. Luckily, a mortar lands close enough to get him. He caused 3 casualties, which are quickly dealt with. Recon by fire is undertaken on likely enemy positions on KT-1. And as the harassing fire from the 81mm mortars continues, a second marksman reveals himself in the ground floor of the 2-storey white building. First Platoon's BARs and marksmen return fire. As the FO re-establishes radio comms and redirects the mortar fire. The weapons platoon's machine guns add to the firepower. Allowing 2nd Platoon to commence its long run across the open ground over to the left flank. Strategic Update 1. 12 hours, 12 minutes into battle. 1st Platoon have sent out scouts and have been actively engaging units on KT-1. 2nd Platoon have been keeping out of sight at the rear and are now commencing their manoeuvre to the left. 3rd Platoon are also keeping out of sight on the right. The 2 medium machine guns of 4th Platoon are firing on likely enemy overwatch locations on KT-1, whilst the 60mm mortar section is being kept out of sight. So far, enemy spotted positions are on the west side of KT-1. Looking eastwards at KT-1 from the front, we can see the positions of the 2 marksmen. The one on the left was taken out by an 81mm mortar round, the one on the right is still in position. The highlighted areas show where most of the 81mm mortar fire has been directed to up until now. However, with 2nd Platoon beginning its manoeuvre, I am bringing extra firepower to bear on both the top floor of the 3-storey building on the left and the 2-storey white building, as both of these buildings can see into 2nd Platoon's avenue of advance and will need to be fully suppressed to allow a safe manoeuvre. Therefore, both the medium machine guns are firing into these 2 positions. The name of the game is Fire and Manoeuvre. The machine guns and 1st Platoon will provide base of fire for 2nd Platoon's manoeuvre. The 81mm harassing fire mission comes to a close. 2nd Platoon take 1 casualty as they cross the open space, caused by a previously unspotted machine gunner. The manoeuvring teams are ordered to get down as the fire element shifts fire to deal with the threat. A more ominous threat presents itself.
Fire for effect, over.
75mm infantry support gun is nestled in the vineyard just below KT-1. With the gun pinned, 2nd Platoon can continue its manoeuvre. One of the 60mm mortars sets up to take the gun out. gun is destroyed and the surviving crew member flees through the mortar fire. Despite suppressing fire, the MG-34 on the right is still putting up a fight. Despite this, 2nd Platoon make it across the open ground with no further casualties. As they now take over as the fire element, machine gun fire comes from the 3rd story building on KT-1. 1st Platoon now become the manoeuvre element and begin to cross the open terrain and manoeuvre left. An enemy scout is spotted on the left observing the manoeuvre. 2nd Platoon take care of the scout. And his previously unseen companion takes to his heels. The MG team on the right is proving hard to dislodge despite being in open terrain. But it is finally dislodged. As the remainder of 1st Platoon catch up to 2nd Platoon, suppressive fire is increased on the foremost buildings on KT-1. Allowing a scout team from 2nd Platoon to advance over the last bit of open ground towards the objective. Despite some return fire causing a casualty in the base of fire element, the scouts get over to the wall of the orchard in front of KT-1, prompting the rest of 2nd Platoon to head out after them. The machine gun at the top of the 3-story building is spotted and kept suppressed by small arms from 1st Platoon and mortars from 4th Platoon. Reducing his rate of fire and allowing 2nd Platoon to get to the orchard wall unscathed. With 2nd Platoon across, 1st Platoon now move out to join them. And as 1st Platoon arrive at the orchard wall, they again form a base of fire, allowing 2nd Platoon to bump further towards the objective. Another machine gunner is seen crawling through the adjacent vineyard towards the firing position. Mortars and marksmen help keep him suppressed. And as 2nd Platoon approach KT-1, they are well placed to finish him off. On the right, 3rd Platoon send out a 2-man team to scout the avenue of advance to KT-2. They spot German scouts pulling back up the hill towards the buildings.
Adjust fire.
Strategic Update 2, 12:33 hours, 33 minutes into battle. 1st Platoon have been working fire and manoeuvre in conjunction with 2nd Platoon. 2nd Platoon are on the outskirts of KT-1, the Borgo Cascino objective. Both 1st and 2nd Platoon have arrived at the objective across open ground, slightly tired but with minimal losses. 3rd Platoon are beginning to move out towards KT-2. 4th Platoon are proving highly effective. The medium machine guns are denying my opponent certain advantageous observation posts within the buildings, and the 60mm mortars are able to quickly bear down on any enemy in the open that exposes his position. I am very happy with the progress so far, although I am starting to get a little concerned about the time. I am particularly happy with 1st and 2nd Platoons manoeuvre across the open ground. Starting from a defilade position, the platoons use successive bounds to manoeuvre towards the objective, making use of cover where practical and one platoon always providing base of fire to cover the other. This, along with the added support from 4th Platoon, has allowed the 2 platoons to be delivered in a combat effective state onto the outskirts of their objective. Zooming in on 2nd Platoon and reorientating the camera eastwards. 2nd Platoon's next job is to probe into the objective to gather intelligence on the enemy positions within. 1st Platoon will stay in reserve for now. On the right flank, 3rd Platoon is beginning its manoeuvre towards KT2. This again will be across open terrain for the first half of the route. However, I am taking a less cautious approach to this manoeuvre. The first reason for this is time. KT2 has to be taken to allow the right flank of 1st and 2nd Platoon to be secured and allow easier movement on the southern side of KT1. The second reason is that I believe at this point that the threat to this approach has been all but eliminated. Although some units were spotted to the west side of KT2, they soon pulled back to the buildings at the top of the hill. Once these 2 pieces of key terrain are taken, observation to the east side of the map can be obtained, facilitating encroachment onto the 2 rear objectives. The machine guns continue to provide fire onto KT1 as a scout team from 2nd Platoon move in on the objective. As they get closer to the 2-storey white building, German infantry are heard on the far side. A couple of grenades are thrown over in an attempt to dislodge them. Encouraged by the sight of a German infantryman withdrawing, the scouts move up to the 2-storey building. But both are killed at close range by a hiding German team. More scouts from 2nd Platoon seek out the enemy positions. And the last of the 60mm mortars are used to shell the far side of the 2-storey white building. The second scout team move into the building, only to find that the German team has pulled back. Continued suppressing fire from the BARs is forcing the Germans to give up their forward positions, allowing 2nd Platoon to cautiously encroach into KT1. Germans start to take casualties and pull back. Suppressive fires increased on the front buildings. Smoke is used to help conceal manoeuvring troops for the push into the front buildings. Germans are in a strong defensive position across the central courtyard, so a withdrawal is made back out the west side of the front buildings. On the right, 3rd Platoon continued to cross the open ground towards KT2. The company commander and XO team move up in their jeeps. And leave their jeeps between KT1 and 2. As 3rd Platoon get across the open ground, they take a short breather before continuing through the woods towards KT2. A scout team is sent ahead to check the route through the woods. German infantry near KT2 give away their position. A couple of rifle grenades and small arms fire sees them off. Whilst the majority of 3rd Platoon continue to move up through the woods on foot, First Squad commandeer the company commander and XO's jeeps to speed up the attack. As 3rd Platoon approach KT2, a German team is spotted pulling back into the buildings. As soon as the perimeter wall is reached, suppressive fire is poured into the buildings. Facilitating manoeuvre. As the firefight dies down, 3rd Platoon overrun the German positions and KT2 is occupied. This secures the company's right flank. With the mortar section out of ammo, the section move over the open ground towards KT2 and 3rd Platoon. As they approach, they commandeer the jeeps left by 3rd Platoon. Strategic Update 3, 12:53 hours, 53 minutes into battle. 2nd Platoon have moved into the western end of KT1. 1st Platoon have remained in reserve. 3rd Platoon have secured KT2. And 4th Platoon's mortar section have moved over to KT2 and commandeered the jeeps. The machine gun section has completed their mission, which was to provide cover fire for the company's manoeuvre. Zooming in on 3rd Platoon still looking north, it can be seen more clearly that the right flank of 1st and 2nd Platoon has been secured. This position allows line of sight from the north through to the southeast of the map. It also allows a base of fire to be set up to put additional pressure on some of the German positions on the east side of KT1. Zooming in on 2nd Platoon's position, looking towards the east. One of the squads moved into the front line of buildings after pushing out the German defenders occupying them. Upon doing so, multiple German units across the courtyard opened up. An immediate withdrawal from the firefight was ordered so as to minimise casualties. With 3rd Platoon on KT2, support by fire can be offered from the right. allowing 2nd Platoon's rightmost squad to manoeuvre towards the 2 southernmost buildings. On the left, a squad from 1st Platoon can potentially manoeuvre across the open ground at the northern end of the objective. However, this will be a higher risk manoeuvre, as I do not know what lies within the wooded area nor the northernmost buildings, although nothing yet has been spotted. The rest of 2nd Platoon will build up behind the westernmost buildings and wait for the other squads to get into position. Then all 3 components will attack simultaneously, manoeuvring onto the fire step and attempting to overwhelm the German defenders as quickly as possible with concentrated fire. The mortar section in the jeeps will now flank right to threaten the road to Enna objective. I do not yet know if my opponent has any forces defending the rear, so have to remain cautious. 3rd Platoon on KT2 set up a base of fire to suppress German positions on KT1. On the far right, the mortar section push into the enemy rear using the jeeps. As they dismount, contact is made with a machine gun team behind KT1. At the northern end of KT1, smoke and cover fire allow a team from 1st Platoon to manoeuvre forward. At the southern end of KT1, more smoke is deployed, allowing for manoeuvre on the right. With the squads in position, the order is given to push into the buildings. As the German defence starts to crumble, 1st Platoon push in to exploit the crack. The defenders are overwhelmed and pushed out of the objective. 3rd Platoon on KT2 bound towards KT1 to keep up the pressure on the breaking Germans. 1st and 2nd Platoon push across the courtyard. The last of the 81mm mortars are used on the target reference point situated on the secure from enemy objective. Behind the enemy line, the 60mm mortar section continue their push towards the road to Enna objective. And make it onto the objective without further incident. 2nd Platoon are dealing with stragglers on the eastern side of KT1. First Platoon push out northeast of the objective to prevent the Germans reforming for a counter-attack. Stragglers are spotted hiding in the vineyards to the east. 3rd Platoon cautiously approach from the south, whilst elements of 1st and 2nd Platoon approach from the west. As the battle ends with 3rd Platoon helping to secure the road to Enna, one private gives thanks for the day's events.
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
And it's a US Army total victory. I have 100 men OK with 17 casualties and 1 jeep destroyed. My opponent unfortunately has no men OK and 58 casualties. With all of my opponent's forces destroyed, I have been awarded full points for the objectives and also 150 points for keeping my casualties under 33%. Having a look back at the map and zooming in, we can see that there are no German units left. Victory has been total. KT1 and KT2 have been secured. 1st Platoon have ended up in the woods to the northeast of KT1 seeking out German stragglers. 2nd Platoon have been ordered to stay on the objective but also help clear out some stragglers in the vineyards to the east. 3rd Platoon helped clear out some stragglers as well and have now ended up on the road to Enna objective in support of the mortar section who arrived there first via use of the jeeps. I am overwhelmingly pleased with how this attack went. I have achieved complete victory with minimal casualties against a skilled opponent who has beaten me before. In my own evaluation, the key to my success was the correct application of the principle of fire and manoeuvre. On the left, 1st and 2nd Platoon used successive bounds to cover large swathes of open ground. The weapons platoon was key in providing suppressive fire from the machine guns and shutting down any return fire with the 60mm mortars. In addition, the 2 platoons were able to cover each other during the manoeuvre. Once at the objective, the weapons platoon could no longer provide supporting fire, so the platoons had to rely on their own support weapons, the BAR and rifle grenades. 2nd Platoon led the attack and 1st Platoon waited in reserve to exploit an opening. By this time, 3rd Platoon had secured KT2 and the right flank, and by using a coordinated push, the objective was overwhelmed whilst sustaining very light casualties. On the right, 3rd Platoon's manoeuvre towards KT2 was a gain over open ground. As the weapons platoon was supporting the other 2 platoons, 3rd Platoon had to make this crossing without additional support. However, at the time of the manoeuvre, most of the enemy positions had already revealed themselves whilst trying to delay the other 2 platoons. The result being that almost all of the threats had been dealt with prior to 3rd Platoon's manoeuvre. Some contact was made in the vineyard below KT2, but it was easily dealt with. Again, a coordinated attack by the squads of 3rd Platoon was the key to victory, and the area was overrun with minimal casualties. From KT2, the mortar section moved into the jeeps and began a deep penetration into the enemy rear via the right flank. The intention was to probe the defences of the Road to Enna objective at the eastern end of the map. A machine gun team at the rear of KT1 were the only enemy in the vicinity. They damaged one of the jeeps but were quickly overwhelmed. The mortar section moved on to the objective with no casualties. I would not have had enough time to challenge the secure from enemy objective in the woods to the northeast, so a heavy 81mm mortar barrage was dropped onto that objective to annihilate any infantry that may have been there. It doesn't, however, appear as if any were present. I'd like to say a big thank you to my opponent Buckykatt, who assures me that he did also enjoy this game. If you like what you've seen, please leave a like, feel free to comment, subscribe. I'm Josie Wales. War is hell. Thanks for watching.